in a recent speech by the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, seems like he's moved, or maybe the administration has moved closer to your viewpoint, Steve, on what relationships with China should look like, given some of what's happened in the recent history with China. Is that fair to say?
I think it's even deeper than that. I think if you look at the series of 4 speeches, starting with National Security Advisor O'Brien in Phoenix back in earlier, I think in June, earlier in July, you look at him, FBI Director Wray, really the seminal speech given by the Attorney General Bill Barr, and then culminated at the Nixon Library on the 50th anniversary, or close to 50th anniversary of Kissinger's trip, secret trip to China, which really drove the stake in Kissingerism. I think that this shows that the United States has a coherent and comprehensive strategy with taking on, not just containing, but I think taking on the Chinese Communist Party. And it's pretty broad-based, and it's breathtaking as comprehension, and it's how it's developed into an alliance of liberty, bringing in the United Kingdom, India, Japan, everything from the technological and information warfare the CCP has been running to the economic warfare, and hopefully to avoid kinetic warfare in the future. But I think from the South China Sea to the border of Chinese-occupied Tibet, to London with Huawei, to Washington, D.C., to the streets of Hong Kong, you're now seeing free people throughout the world standing up to the Chinese Communist Party. And I think it's going to be the greatest legacy of President Trump's 8 years in the White House.
You know, just for the markets, because that is what we covered, when we were in negotiations on phase 1 for China and trying to figure out how to reset our trading relationship, the markets would move up or down based on prospects for arriving at a deal, what the deal included, prospects for a phase 2. None of this sounds good for a phase 2, and I don't even know how it sounds for whether they follow through on phase 1. Why is this a positive, and why aren't the markets more concerned? Obviously, COVID took precedence in the meantime, but it used to be really important for the global economy how we dealt with China as a trading partner.
This is important for the global economy, and you're going to see better things once the Chinese Communist Party is out of the way. The cheerleaders on Wall Street and corporate America, and I think this is what Bill Barr's, speech, he said they were collaborators and guilty of appeasement, and he put them on notice about FARA. I think the administration has had a very tough policy in saying that the Chinese Communist Party, and remember, this is not COVID-19, this is the CCP virus. The CCP lied and Americans died. The CCP lied and Chinese citizens died. The Chinese Communist Party's lied from the beginning about this virus, and we must focus on this. How can we talk about a trade deal? How can we talk about that when what they've done in Hong Kong, when they've taken away the freedoms of the Hong Kong people? At the same time, the chain of custody on the decisions, whether it came from a bioweapons program or whether it came from a gain-of-function experiment in the Wuhan lab gone awry. We know from the chain of title and chain of custody of their decisions back in December to lie to everybody, including at the trade deal, to come over here, shake the President of the United States' hand, have a huge gathering in the East Room with some of our most prominent businessmen, and never notify anybody of what we know they knew back in late December. And we know that General Secretary Xi knew and talked to a senior cadre the first week of January. Their behavior is outrageous. They need to be held accountable. I think what you saw in those 4 speeches, and what we're waiting for, is the same level of speech from the Secretary of Treasury. And ultimately, I know the President of the United States is going to cap it with a major address, I assume, to take this on. But I got to tell you, there's a sea change. New York Times had a brilliant article the other day. What's been put in place by this whole government approach now is not going to be able to be unwinded by Beijing Biden. The ability of Biden to come in here, and Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and his crowd have been noticeably quiet. Richard Haas and all the apologists for this murderous dictatorship are out there with their pom-poms on, but it doesn't change the fact they lied about this virus. They exacerbated it. It spread throughout the world. They've got to be held accountable. I think in these bills you're seeing up, I think stripping over the sovereign immunity, break the Hong Kong dollar, cut them off from all U.S. dollars, use Hong Kong as the anvil and the U.S. dollar as the hammer. It's time now to take the fight directly financially to the Chinese Communist Party.